Persuasion is a little bit more specific and transactional, right? I'm trying to persuade you to do a specific thing. Whereas influence is a very softer, it has a much softer touch. It's a bit more high level, right? It's not the sort of thing where you walk into a room, you hit it out of the park, you walk out, right? You may have done that, but you probably effectively persuaded in that situation with an argument, whereas influence didn't necessarily even require a compelling, strong argument. It could have been a lot of other factors surrounding it, surrounding influence that got them there. We're going to talk about that in a second. And the other one I want to draw a distinction is between influence and manipulation. Some of the things that we're going to talk about today could sound like are they being manipulative, right? But manipulative is meant to be kind of devious by design, right? But we're not trying to manipulate people, right? These are, and everything that we're going to talk about, I want you to really think about it through a positive, empathetic lens, because there's a way to approach all of these different skills in such a way where it does not have to even remotely come close to the line of being right? So, how important is this in your career? Well, good luck influencing a customer or an investor or anyone to go along your direction if you don't have the ability to influence, right? So, as we talked about, like the idea isn't enough. Now, product managers specifically, who do you guys need to influence? Stakeholders. Probably one of the top three, right? Who else are you guys trying to influence on a day-to-day basis? Team members. So who's that going to be? That's going to be your designers that you work closely with. That's going to be the engineers that run your Scrum team. And you're probably also, you could also be working with users. So there's a whole host of parties that you're interacting with. And I'd like you to kind of think about it from the perspective of, in order, like one of the number one roles of a product manager, one of the hardest jobs, one of the most important jobs of a product manager is to execute on a product strategy, right? Now, what's like the number one game that comes to mind when you think about strategy, right? You think of chess, right? Now, in a chess game, you get to move your pieces where you want to in order to execute the strategy. But when you go to work every day, you don't get to just tell pieces where to go, right? So you have to influence. It's like playing chess, where you have to influence the pieces where they need to go. And it's very difficult to execute a strategy if you can't actually move your whole army in the right direction. Right? That means your stakeholders, your Scrum team, your users, everybody that you're trying to get on. So, I think we can listen to me about this, right? So, I'll tell you a little bit about my background, and I want to talk to you guys a bit about some of the work that we have to do at Northwestern Mutual, which had a lot of interesting headwinds, and we had a lot of influence. I don't say peddling, that sounds ridiculous, but we had to move a lot of people in a certain direction. So a little bit about my background. Started out as a software engineer, worked for a couple software companies over the years, ran my own digital agency for some years, building mobile apps, websites, worked very much in a consultative capacity. And then about 3 years ago, I joined Northwestern Mutual shortly after they were acquired by, I joined LearnVest basically shortly after they were acquired by Northwestern Mutual. So LearnVest based here out of Union Square, Northwestern Mutual based out of Milwaukee. I had to look up what state is that in. Apparently it's in Wisconsin. Now I'm there 3 times a month, going back and forth because I have a team here and the marketing team is there. So I'm going to talk a bit about Northwestern Mutual and where we were about 3 years ago, around the time when they acquired LearnVest. So this was their client experience. So if you bought life insurance from them, whole life, investment products or whatnot, and you logged in, this is what you saw. It looked like something that was maybe designed by my accountant, and I probably would have needed to sit down with my accountant to understand exactly what it meant, because a lot of people don't understand what net death benefit is and all the different terminology that they had. There were no charts or graphs. You couldn't pay your bill on the client website. You couldn't reset your password on the client website. You had to call customer service to reset your password. So the situation was really not great. We had no mobile app. Right? Now, mind you, we're talking about 2016 right now. This is 5 years or plus after Betterment has already launched Wealthfront. Goldman is calling themselves a technology company. So every legacy player is transforming and saying, we are not just a bank. We are not just an insurance company. We are a tech company, right? That's the direction the market was in. Meanwhile, we had no mobile app. We had no what we call pre-client experience, which means if you're not yet a client working with an advisor, you didn't have anything to log in. It's like to use. You didn't really have like mint-like functionality to organize your finances. So we were like really, really behind. And what had already been built had almost no digital adoption. So 4+ million clients, only 3.6% of them were even using the technology that had been built before them. And it's no surprise because it wasn't very good. This was the consumer website, and this was what my team was in charge of. It was a great website back in like 1998, 2000, but it really hadn't had a serious facelift in 10, 15 years. We had difficulty tracking basic analytics around it. There was no digital marketing strategy. And when we went in, we asked, hey, how many digital leads did you guys generate last year? They said, oh, we generated tons. And it's because all they really had was a contact form. And in that contact form, they might have been asking to speak with an advisor because they were actually a digital lead, or they might have been asking to update the beneficiary or needed help with their policy or something like that. So when we had to go in by hand, actually count their contact forms to understand what was our baseline, right? So we had a long way to go. So we had to radically transform the way we work. We had these large monolithic teams. We had to break the teams up into like small scrum teams. We use like the Amazon pizza pie team model, which basically says that no team should be larger than about 2 pizza pies could be. So every team had a product manager, about 4 to 6 engineers, maybe a UX designer, a visual designer. Sometimes those were shared amongst 2 teams, and in some cases they might have had an embedded business partner as well. Right? And those teams were empowered now to go and release on a 2-week cadence. So the idea was to break up these massive teams that had like all these interdependencies between each other and enable them to start working independently. Using this approach, and so in 2015, despite the fact that they were spending hundreds of millions of dollars on all their engineers and product teams and all of that, they only had 89 pushes to production the entire year. In 2016, it was 177, and it was barely anything on the radar. By 2017, by using this model, we had accelerated to 1,400 releases, and then closed out last year with 4,000. So we took very much a similar size team, and we generated multiple velocity by changing the way we work and changing the way the business interacted with each of these teams. This is our client experience now. We work with our digital marketing team. Instead of a campaign that was all focused on sacrificing today in order to retire better tomorrow, we actually completely redid the campaign around how do you simultaneously prepare for tomorrow while living life today, right, and enjoying the life you live today. We did things like launch a life insurance calculator. I mean, we were a life insurance company, but we couldn't figure out how much life insurance we need on our website. So we made it all mobile friendly, we made it easy to use. We developed a prospect experience, so if you were networking with an advisor, you could have an experience that you could log into to share documents, to be able to organize your finances, and do all of that digitally. And we launched a mobile app. You could now pay your bill on time, and automatically we pushed the paperless delivery of all of their statements. So all of this essentially moved from only 145,000 clients that were using the digital experience to 1.3 million clients in a few years. We got over 150,000 clients using our mobile app. So we had more clients using our mobile app than we were even using the desktop experience. About half of our clients now use paperless delivery. And the external accounts that could be aggregated now using like capabilities is over 77 billion. The digital leads program, which I work very closely on, generated 60,000 leads for our advisors. And we went from a bounce rate of about 65%, which meant that about 2 out of 3 people would leave the website as soon as they hit that first page. Now it's at 2 out of 3 stay. So we completely flipped that number on its head, and we've seen our mobile usage growing at a rate of about 50%. So how did we do all of this? We're going to cover 6 principles of influence, and we just touched on the very first one: authority. So you're much more likely to be influenced by somebody if you believe that they actually know what they're talking about, that they have experience in a particular subject matter, and you're actually aware of what it is that they do. So I kind of liken this to the, how many people here have seen Pulp Fiction? Good. Last time it was a really animated and saw it. So this is like my favorite establishment of authority, right? For those of you who haven't seen the movie, bad things happen, and they need a fixer to come in and clean up a big mess. And Winston Wolfe shows up at the door, he opens it, and the first thing he says is, "Hi, I'm Winston Wolfe, I solve problems." And it's very clear at that point who's in charge, it's very clear who you can trust in that situation, and he establishes that influence over everybody that he needs to now move in a certain direction, right? Now, in a practical setting, when you're not cleaning up the mess that some gangster makes, you're probably wondering, how do you apply this concept in your day-to-day? One of the things that I see pretty regularly is that people assume that everybody that they work with knows what it is that they do and knows what it is that they've achieved. And the reality is, most of us in our day-to-day, if we think about all of the people that we interact with, do we really know what they do every single day? You could be sitting 2 seats away from them, but you may not really know all that much about what they do and what they've achieved. So whenever we're sitting, particularly with a group that we're trying to educate about a certain plan or a vision that we have, one of the first things we do is we start by telling them about who we are and what we've achieved. Similar to how I open, right? Before you start looking forward, because everybody's very focused on looking forward, here's what we want to do, here's what we want to build, here's what we want to achieve, and that's all great. But before you look forward, take a moment to look back. Because looking back helps to establish the authority that you've probably already built up, and the credibility that goes along with that. What I found is that when you just jump into like the work without talking about who you are and who your team members are, it's very easy to just breeze past that point. And meanwhile, everybody's kind of, now they're only focused on the work, but they don't know if they can trust the message and who the message is coming from, right? So establishing that trust, and what you're going to find is that most of these principles of influence are very much rooted in who you are and how deep of a connection people can make with who you are, with what you achieve, and we're gonna touch on a bit more of that. The other thing I would say is, it's hard sometimes to sit in a room and feel like you're bragging about yourself, right? And feel like, hey, here's what we've achieved, here's what we've done, we're killing it, right? That's not. Some people can do that very comfortably, and they don't maybe they don't even come across like they're bragging. Other people are very uncomfortable talking about themselves, right? Everybody's personality is different. Sometimes what's helpful is to let somebody else be a champion for you, and for you to be a champion for them, because it actually comes across much better when you talk about someone else and the great work that they've done, and a bit about like what led them here. And the same goes. So if you're a bit uncomfortable with like the road show and like talking about your achievements, try to bring somebody in that can help do that for you. So the second principle that I want to touch on is around relationships. Now, this one seems like a no-brainer. Like yeah, I mean, like the common form of relationship selling is like real estate. And real estate is very much like you're gonna feel more comfortable, you know, leasing a place, purchasing a place if you're dealing with a real estate agent that you've developed a rapport with, and you have some trust with. Because it's a big decision, right? Without a genuine relationship with someone, it can be really difficult to influence them. You're then relying much more on the ideas and on getting them excited about the ideas because you aren't necessarily able to lean on your likability factor. A big part of building a relationship is ultimately getting people to like you. It's like the most simple human principle ever, right? Would you rather sit across from the table with somebody that you like, somebody that you know, somebody that you're comfortable with, or somebody that has never taken the time to get to know you, and now all of a sudden they want you to do something, right? In that case, you're kind of very guarded, right? You're not sure if you can trust them. You're not sure if you are taking an unnecessary risk by trusting them. I mean, your idea might sound good, but you know, what if you're wrong, right? People are wrong all the time. So when we think about like relationships, building relationships in your professional capacity, whether it's within your company, whether it's with clients, this is the sort of thing that you want to start before you're at a point where you need to influence. So what does that mean? That means take the time to start to walk around your floor or your company and get to know the people that you are working with right now. Take them out for coffee. Find out how long they've been with the company. What do they do? They like what they do. Where were they before? What's their family life like? Where do they work? I mean, where do they live? Right? What's their commute like? And just get to know them. I mean, it's like super simple stuff, but it has to be genuine, right? Like, if you take a genuine interest in the people you work with and informing those relationships, you'll find that by the time, like, you're not always going to be able to predict who it is that you're going to need to interact with, or even what the nature of that interaction is going to be. But taking the time to get to know them is going to bear fruit. So, for example, when we first started on this whole this digital leads program, right? So we took it from basically nothing to like over 60,000 digital leads. Well, we were still getting to know like who was who in the organization, right? I mean, Northwestern Mutual, they've been around for 160 years, right? So they've got every kind of legacy problem that you can imagine a company that old and that large has. And we had to figure out how to create a digital marketing strategy for them, we revamp their website, we have all these things that we need to do. And you would think that a lot of people there would be super excited that we were going to come in and we were going to like kill it, right? And actually a lot of people were like, no, this isn't going to work. We tried that before, it failed. Don't even waste your time. We're a 160-year-old company. Our advisors are the cornerstone of the relationship. Digital cannot replace that. Does that sound familiar? Right? That was what resonated with me when I saw that video. Right? I was like, oh my God, this is literally what we were dealing with. Right? We knew it was going to take some time, and so what we started doing was we started flying out to Milwaukee, and we would take large groups of people out for drinks. We would do lunches. We would do dinners. We just started to we didn't have like a particular goal in mind. We just wanted to figure out like who was who and start to make friends with everybody. Because they might be saying no to all the new ideas right now, but they don't know us yet. Right? Maybe once they get to know us, we can have a more frank conversation about it and their walls. Okay? And so that was what we did for months while we simultaneously did a lot of planning and while simultaneously we were doing our research around, hey, how could a digital marketing program work? We talked to advisors, we talked to clients, we did studies, surveys. So we were doing our homework. That wasn't all that we were doing, right? But like, as good product managers, we were trying to figure out what's the right product here, what's the right experience for our clients or for prospective clients. But simultaneously, we knew we had to make friends, right? So we started with relationships, because that was ultimately what was going to get us to the next level. So now, and this one is really closely connected to relationships. And it's basically just based on the concept that doing someone a solid pays dividends. So, what were some examples of things that we did? As we developed this digital leads program, for example, once it started to become a good idea, all of a sudden everybody wanted to have their name attached to it. Now, we were the ones that are championing it from go, but we realized one of the best things we could do was let other people be the face of it. So we helped them create the pitch decks that we're going to sell it up to senior leaders of the company. We basically did everything we could to make everybody around us look good, right? So rather than us taking the credit, we were giving out credit. We were earning all of this trust. We were spending hours of our time basically just giving away our time to other teams in order to help them. Because ultimately, they were going to reciprocate whether they realized it or not. And we weren't necessarily doing it, like, again, we weren't doing it with any like obvious manipulation in mind, but we wanted to have a great relationship with our business partners. And we knew that helping them was going to tighten up that relationship. Now, there's all of these principles, by the way, are rooted in science. So there's countless studies that have studied all of these things, like relationships and liking, like how much more easily are you manipulated by something like, or how much more easily can you be influenced by that. I mean, we see that in politics all the time, right? They'll study the likability of a candidate. Why is it so important to like somebody? Isn't it more important to have somebody that's super competent? But at the end of the day, competence isn't enough to get elected, right? You have to like you. Scarcity. And this is an easy one. It's basically based on the concept that people want more of the things that there are less of. And we see this all the time, right? One-day sale, right? Act now. Everything you see in your day-to-day like retail sales world is all about getting you to act. Not someday. It's not good enough for you to buy someday. But the important thing is, can you buy today? Right? You buy as soon as possible, right? And this principle you can apply universally. And there's also, I would just argue, there's also this fear of missing out is an important one. So when we think about like we go back to that scene from the movie, at no point did he discuss the risk of inaction. Right? At no point did he highlight to any of them the existential risk when all of their competitors would potentially beat their lunch. And that if they didn't act now, the whole landscape could change in the next 18 to 24 months, right? That's a very different message to send. Now, they might have disagreed with it, but it certainly would have hurt them up in their seats, right? So it's important also not only to share the benefits of action, right? Like we should be doing X, but it's equally important to share the risk of inaction, right? There's always, like, choosing not to make a decision is a choice in and of itself. People often aren't discussing what's the effect of inaction. So actually, when we were rolling out that digital leads program, one of the headwinds that we ran into was a team that was responsible for we could call them like they were like the protectors of our advisor field force, right? We had 7,000 plus advisors, and these folks are like their mission is to make sure that they receive the training, the support. That their clients aren't being stolen, just like they work really hard to build up a book of business, right? And they want to make sure that that's all protected, right? So you're just making sure that one advisor can't see another advisor's clients and things like that, right? So when we shared this vision with them that, hey, consumers can come on northwestristributional.com and we're going to make it easy for them to get paired with an advisor of their choice. Because right now, like the way the system was set up back then, you would have to go in and search through a directory of 7,000 advisors to pick the advisor you wanted to work with. And guess what? Nobody was comparing, so people just dropped off. Very few people actually took that first step. We said, hey, let's build like a Tinder recruiter for advisors, right? Like, let people go on, they'll tell us a few things about themselves, and we'll match them up with the perfect advisor for them. And they love the idea, except for like one big problem, I said. Well, what if a client of an advisor decides they go through this flow, and all of a sudden they're not going to become a client of a different advisor? This is going to create mayhem. The world will end. The sky is falling. And so we were trying to figure out how do we get them to push through this concern. So ultimately, what we reminded them of, and the way we got through it, was by reminding them of a very simple statistic, which is that 96% of the advisors that start with Northwestern Mutual will fail by year 5. They will no longer be an advisor. And the question is, do they want to continue to be, this is the team that's responsible for their success. Do they want to be the team that continues to be the face of what sounds like not a very successful outcome, right? If the majority of advisors won't make it past year 5. So all of a sudden, the risk of inaction became a big deal. And so we coupled that with another technique. And by the way, none of these things we were doing consciously, but it was just like, we have to not just show them the benefits, but also highlight some of the risks. But we also tie into this some additional techniques to help them take that first step in small bites. And so that kind of ties into the next principle, which is consistency. The concept of consistency and influence says that if you've agreed to do something small, you're much more likely to agree to do something bigger because you've already made a commitment. So we see this, for example, in free trials, right? You didn't make a big commitment. You know that you're getting your money back, right? You did a 30-day free trial, but then you started using it. You've invested your time in it. You've learned how it works, and you're much more likely at that point to say, okay, screw it, I'll agree to the $29.95 a month for it and start using it. They did an interesting study where they were trying to convince people to put yard signs that said like stop drunk driving. And I mean now there's nobody that disagrees. There's nobody that disagrees with stopping drunk driving, right? But they were going from house to house, and almost nobody wanted to put this little yard sign in their front room. Now, for another group of people, what they did was they went first to them and said, they didn't tell them about the yard sign. They said, here's a little postcard. Would you be okay putting this little postcard in your window? And the healthy amount of people were like, yeah, whatever, it's just a little postcard, right? It's not a big ugly yard sign. And they would put that postcard in their window. They then went back to those people 10 days later and said, hey, we saw you guys have that yard sign. We saw you guys have that postcard. How do you feel about putting a yard sign in? And 400% more were agreed to put a yard sign than the folks that didn't make that smaller commitment first. So being able to make incremental commitments is another big aspect of influence. And part of it is that we in our nature, who likes to be wrong? Maybe you love being wrong, right? Maybe a little bit. When we commit to something, we like to follow through. We like to stay consistent to our previously held beliefs. We stay consistent to our previous actions. So when you make a small commitment, and you're much more likely to then be convinced to make a larger commitment as well. So asking for small commitments, and especially if you can get a small commitment from someone publicly, right? So if you're on a conference call, and whatever, there's 10 people on the line, and you're looking for somebody to commit, to agree to something, if you can get them to agree to something in front of everybody, and even if no matter how small it is, you just got your foot in the door with that person, with that team, you can then come back to them and ask for more and increase that commitment. But oftentimes starting too big is too much for certain folks. So with this team that we were talking to, where they were afraid of the clients of one advisor were going to get stolen by another advisor, we said to them, look, we're not going to roll this out to the whole field. It's 7,000 advisors. We're not going to do that. But you've got this massive risk. We've got to lower this 96% number down. Why don't we start with 100 advisors, and we'll see if this probably materializes. All of a sudden, it's like, this is so great. Right? We kept the risk small. We then increased from 100 advisors to about 400, from 400 to about 1,400, and then eventually rolled it out to the entire team. By the time we were ready to really scale, they were going home. They were asking for it by that point. So look to get those small commitments, and then build upon that. And then principle number 6, consensus. So we're much more likely to agree to something if everybody around us is agreeing to it as well, right? That's another just element of human dynamics, social dynamics. It's a big part of how Facebook, Instagram work. We pay a lot of attention to the social cues of people around us. So if you're trying to convince one of your stakeholders to go along with something, and you've convinced another stakeholder already, bring them to the meeting, right? Include them in the process, and then let them know, hey, John over here has already gone along for it. What do you think, Mark? What do you think Mark's more likely to do, right? So bring your troops to the table, and they will kind of help you move things in the right direction. And then, so we kind of look at like what's a common thread in all of this. Believe it or not, is empathy. And I know it might not seem obvious, but at the end of the day, if you come at this from an empathetic standpoint, you care about like where the other person is sitting. So, like, for example, the folks that didn't give us an easy yes on that digital visa program, they weren't coming at it from a bad place. Right? They were genuinely trying to protect the field force. They, in their heart of hearts, believed they were doing the right thing. It required us kind of stepping into their shoes, imagining what their concerns were like, and then figuring out, okay, that makes sense. Let's work through that, and here's how we're going to work through that. And by applying those different principles, so like if we had never taken some of those folks out for drinks and helped them in other ways, and then sat down and gave them a small commitment and reminded them of the risks of inaction, would we have been as likely to have been successful with getting a yes? Right? If they just had no clue who we were, we sat down across from them, asked for this big commitment, they're just going to be like, sorry, no, not really. Right? And that's bad. You don't want to have to put that on. So to kind of tie it all together, we're more likely to be influenced if we think that a person is an authority on subject matter, if we have a trust relationship with them, feel like we owe them one, and if we feel like going along is consistent with our prior choices, especially if it's a popular choice, and that's just a scarce resource. This really kind of ties it all together. So if you think about the different applications of this, it's universal, right? Because whether you're doing internal selling, external selling, just trying to navigate your immediate scrum team, whatever it is, you're always going to be faced with this. So if we go back to that original video, right? Imagine if he had opened with a compliment about the integrity of the company, or this initiative that they had just done that was like barely digital banking maybe, but was enough that you could give a compliment around that. And remind them that they've already dipped their toe in digital banking. Now when he talks about digital banking, he's asking them to make a move that's consistent with something they've already done, right? And even if he had taken the time in that meeting before he talked about his work to just start to introduce them, right? And that could be a pivot because maybe they wanted to talk shop with him, but delaying it, getting to know who they are, or maybe even going in having known a little bit more about who they are, he could have had a whole different kind of conversation because he went in transactional, they went in transactional. But if you had pulled them into the relationship space, then all of a sudden it's a heart-to-heart conversation instead of head-to-head, and that's far easier to navigate. It's far easier to influence someone when you're coming at it from that perspective. So that's all I have.